Hey everybody, what's going on? Before we get started, I just want to say thanks to everybody for hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. It means a lot to me and you're helping my channel grow and I really appreciate it. Recently I decided to put together some trim tutorials, so go to my channel, go to my playlist and look for trim tutorials. In there you're going to find a bunch of video shorts, 10 minutes or less, pinpointing specific things to do with installing trim, removing trim, everything trim. And it's baseboard moldings, it's case moldings, it's crown moldings, and we have a lot more to add. And this is going to be a fairly in-depth tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, problems that you would like answers to, just drop it in the comments. Send me an email. I'll put the address right here, and I'll help you out the best I can. Today we're going to get this trim installed. We're going to talk about nail selection, how we're going to install it, and we're going to get really in depth. I'm Jim Dirdorf and this is Detroit DIY. Let's get started. Let's talk about what we're going to need. We're going to need some painter's tape. We're going to need a pencil. We're going to need a stud finder. I'm going to use my pneumatic nailer. And I'm going to use 15 gauge 2-inch nails. Don't go too short on your nails, because what can happen is you have a 1/2 inch of trim, you have a 1/2 inch of drywall or more, could be 5/8. You never know what's there. So you're already eating up over 1 inch of nail. So that leaves 1 inch of nail to get into the 2x4, which is plenty. Finished nails are not structural nails. The trim is, nothing's forcing it, nothing's racking it, nothing's pulling it, there's no shear pressure. It's basically just holding it there. And that's all you need is a nice finished nail. And these are what they call pins. If you want to do this by hand, it's a little different. You're going to need to select the nails when you buy the trim. If you look down below where the trim is tagged, you will see the nail size that they recommend for that trim. You're going to get that nail, and you're going to get the nail set, and you're going to get your hammer, and you're going to hate life. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get some tape on the wall just slightly above the trim. And we're going to use this to mark our studs. And the reason I like to do it this way is I'm not marking on the wall. Maybe the wall's already painted. Who knows? Doesn't have to be perfect. This has to be a mark. Quite normally, you can be guaranteed that there's 2x4s in the corners. They had to attach this drywall to something. There's 2x4s in the corners. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our stud finder, and we are going to hold the button so that it can calibrate. Once you see that red flash like we just saw, it's calibrated. Now we can start sliding it across and looking for that stud. And there it is. So there's stud number 1. Let's find the next one. And there it is. Alright, so now that we have those 2 studs marked, we're ready to install this piece of trim. I'm going to go ahead and mark this and the other side. The way a wall is constructed is there's a bottom plate. So there's a 2x4 down here laying flat that is 1.5 inches tall. And that runs the full length. So we have something there to always nail the trim into. But what can happen is if you nail down there, it can cause the trim to tilt a little bit. Sometimes, not always. And what that'll do is open up a bigger gap at the top than what you may want. So what I like to do is go along and nail it at the top near my stud. I do not nail into the profile, or I try not to unless it's a very elaborate case molding or baseboard molding and there's just so much profile that it's hard to get a nail near the top without sticking it in the profile. It's no big deal. It can be patched and sanded out. It's nothing to worry about. So the very first thing we're going to do is push our trim firmly in place, hold it there, and we're going to get one nail right in here. Just like so. Check it. Make sure that your air pressure is good and that the nail's set. Now we're going to do the same thing for this stud right here. So now the top of our trim is secured. I can get one more down here, but that's no big deal. Now what I want to do is about 8 inches away, or in the center of those, I want to go ahead and pin it at the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. So about every 8 inches, and just to help you better see the pattern, one here, and one right here. So now that this piece is attached, we want to pay special attention to this corner, and if the trim needs to be pushed down or pushed into place, go ahead and do that now. Get it pushed in there nice and tight, and then what we're going to do is put a pin right in this corner at the top. Just like that. Ooh, that one didn't set all the way, so we're going to use the nail set, and I'll show you how to do that. We're going to continue on with the same thing here, pushing the trim firmly into place. Our stud is right here, so we're going to get one nail at the top. And our next stud is right here, and we'll get another nail in the top, pushing it in nice and tight. Now we're just going to come back at the bottom, in between the centers of those, and get another pin. And then that piece is installed. Had to turn up my pressure a little bit, they're not setting. Last, that leaves us with this outside corner. And we're going to push it in there nice and tight and get it to close up just as nice as we can. Now there's always a stud right here on the very edge. And once again, we're going to pin it at the top first. Then we'll come down to our stud, pin it, and down to our next stud, and pin it again, and the same thing, one in the center. So let's take a little closer look at that corner. So this is our inside corner. I'll touch up the paint when we're all done. Looks nice and tight. There's no gaps. Everything is really good. So let's get the nail set and set those nails. This is our nail set. Now nail sets are typically designed to be used with finished nails out of the box. The finished nails have a little crown on their head, and the nail set has a little dimple in it so that it sits on them and it stays on them. These types of pin nails don't have that, so sometimes the nail set can slip off when you're trying to set the nail and poke a little hole in your molding. It's no big deal. You can patch that in. It's nothing to worry about with a little wood filler, and nobody will ever know. But that's all there is to it. That is plenty deep, and we can get some wood filler in there. So we're ready to get some wood filler in here. And before you put the wood filler in, you want to just check and make sure that your nails are set. They just need to be 1/8 of an inch, if that, sunk into the trim. If they're any further in than that, then your air pressure is just too high. You don't want the nail to blast halfway through the trim. You just want it to barely be under the surface. So we're going to use some DAP plastic wood. It's a good product. Any wood putty will work. And what I like to do is just put it in really light. If there's so that there's very little sanding when I'm done. So that's all there is to it. When this dries, I'll come back, give it a little scuff, and it'll be ready for paint. All of the nail holes are filled, and for those of you that may be wondering why I decided to do it like this, to build these little short stub walls to do these tutorials, and I did explain it in one video, and the reason I did this is one, so I could emulate problems. So if you watch the video why coping didn't work or why coping won't work, you'll see in there that I've made this floor extremely unlevel. So it's a 1/4 inch higher here than it is down here, and that creates problems with any trim joint, and it's problems that you may run into that I wanted to cover and make sure that you knew what was going on and how important it is to check the level of your floors. So that's why I did this like this, just in case anyone's wondering or hasn't watched those videos. All the nail holes are filled. I'm going to go ahead and get this sanded. Once your wood putty is dry, you're ready to sand it. And we're just going to use some 220 grit and just scuff it lightly. It doesn't take a lot of effort. If you wait too long to sand this wood putty, it gets a little difficult to sand. So I like to do it, this has been on here probably 15 minutes and it's ready to sand. And just kind of feel it with your finger. If you feel something that's a little bit funky, just put a little bit more in it and do it again. And that's all there is to it. And just go ahead and sand them all down. And it's ready for paint. That's all we got for this time. I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.